Hello and welcome to the award-winning Gutter. I've got Sean Rogers.
Hey.
Phil Blundell.
Woo.
Johnny Gibbons in the house.
Hey.
I feel like I said it was a Christmas edition last week. It's definitely a Christmas edition this week.
We're wearing very festive gear to be
as festive as it. Yeah. I think
we've had to take the tinsel off Rob, though, haven't we? He was wearing tinsel.
I'm quasi-layered because the temperatures they are dropping. Hope for a white Christmas, but better than a white Christmas would be breaking news that Liverpool are buying a footballer or two. But first, I want to hear what NordVPN can contribute to the whole process, John.
Well, I mean, a lot. Great set of lads. Signed up again for next year, so appreciate them. And they've got a great deal to celebrate exclusive to you if you go to nordvpn.com/TAW. It's fantastic for extra security. It's great for peace of mind, especially if you're logging in to public Wi-Fi's when you're abroad or in cafes and things like that. But the best thing I know that a lot of us sports fans, you're a sports fan, aren't you, Rob?
I love sports. No, you don't know. I just like
say football.
Well, for it's even better for soccer.
Sport fan.
Yeah, it's even better for soccer because sometimes there's games of soccer that might not be on telly where you are, but you can change your virtual location with just the click of a button. Suddenly you're somewhere else. You've tricked the internet, or in cahoots with the internet, you've tricked the world, and suddenly you're in a different place.
Who have you had off here?
It goes straight to the top. And the lovely people of NordVPN are suddenly opening up the world of sport/soccer, just entertainment to you. Netflix have got
setting is free.
Netflix have got some good stuff just for America. I'm enjoying that at the moment. It's all fantastic, and that is available to you as well if you go to nordvpn.com/TAW. And thanks a lot to them for partnering with us again.
No problem. I totally forgot we're going to talk about football now, aren't we?
Yeah.
And the transfers. It says top of my agenda, Sean. We have no players. I'll expand.
I don't think you need to.
No, I don't. Do you know what?
I mean, the squad needs to.
Well, do you know what? We came out of the Tottenham game. Apart from the horrible Isak injury, we haven't got a whole raft of new injuries really. And yet, it feels like we've got no squad at all. It feels like our squad is very, very thin. I think it's exacerbated to a degree by the switch to a 5-man midfield. Saying to you before we came on air, I might have said it yesterday on the show, no midfielders are injured at the moment. Not one is injured. And yet our only midfield change we had off the bench is Trey Naoni. I think it was more or less his first minutes in the Premier League, was it? Something like that. That feels a weird state of affairs to me, given we spent $500 million in the summer and all.
Yeah, it's massively exacerbated just by the wide forward situation and the way they've left themselves in the summer transfer window. That's the key issue there, that they haven't had, let's say, a young, dynamic right winger that could maybe learn from Salah for a season. But if Salah was injured or away at AFCON, you could then plug them in and go, Slot's going to use them on the right-hand side. And then on the left-hand side, Luis Diaz hasn't been replaced. So the issue you've got now with no Gakpo and no Salah, this is where it's an interesting dynamic between, let's say, what you want from a sporting director and what you want from a manager, in that I don't think the sporting director has given Slot what he needed in the summer, and it might be that just wasn't attainable. So if you want 2 players for every position, it's no good if the manager's not going to use the second cab off the rank. So if you've got Federico Chiesa as an example and go, well, he could play right and he could play left. If the manager's just not going to do it and he's going to go, I'd actually rather play the 4 midfielders, and I still don't really want to use him unless it's an emergency break glass situation. You've also got the secondary.
Hang on, who's he shown an example of not wanting to use who he's given yet? I don't think there's any example.
Well, I think there's quite a few. I cannot believe that they came out with the brief and that they don't want to stall Rio Ngamo's progression when he was 16 years of age at the time. Like, I actually think that's bordering on negligence to think that you're going to give a 16-year-old loads of minutes.
When you break it down, when you actually break it down, the decision to put him in the Champions League squad instead of Chiesa was mental.
Yeah.
Because he's been used far less than Chiesa, even though Chiesa wasn't in it initially. But also, he's not playing football. And that, maybe the plan was to play him more, I don't know, and they've just decided it's not quite worked out. But there's that youth league in the afternoon. He'd be much better served by playing 90 minutes as the best player on the park, and then maybe coming back into squad at weekends. It just felt very odd to me when you think about it.
He's got a load of players, hasn't he? Like Gomez was in that camp, Endo's definitely in that camp, Chiesa's in that camp of players that he just will not use. So it's all very good sitting there in the summer going, this is the squad. But an Arne Slot's head, Arne Slot isn't someone who goes, well, these are the tools I've got. I'll wring it out and get the most out of it. He's just happy to go, I'm not interested in them.
Let's just do it section by section quickly with the team then. The midfield options he starts this season with are pretty much the same he starts last season with, except he swapped out Wirtz for Elliott. That's about it. So there's no change. He had Endo before then. So if he didn't think he was happy with it last season, he could have put his hand up, and I'm sure he wouldn't have been ignored. And Richard Hughes would have known that too. So I can't. The question you're hinting at is was there a disconnect between the back of house and Arne Slot, between the Hughes Edwards axis and Arne Slot? I think that's you're sort of implying or hinting at this, Shawnee. And if you go section by section, I don't think that's the case in midfield. I think in defence, I think it's hard to make that case because we replace the left back, a reserve left back, we bring in another right back, and we try to buy 2 centre backs. Try is a key word there. It's the four. Is it all? I think you said actually. You said about the forward positions. It's all to do with the forward positions. There was a rush to get rid of forwards who were perceived as either too old or non-performing, and just look at crown jewels really, rather than see the numbers game as it existed and was and has proven to be.
Yeah, I mean, 2 things on that briefly is the centre back and the wide forward position there. That's what it boils down to, really, isn't it? I think you've also got a conversation that I thought Joshua Williams was really good on at the time, that the right back situation with Conor Bradley's growing pains that they know about internally, you need a rock solid right back partner. So you either need to buy enough centre backs where you go, Joe Gomez is actually going to be one of our right backs.
Yeah.
But if you're not going to buy enough centre backs, then you need to buy a right back that I think is sort of Premier League oven ready. And they've been very unlucky with the Frimpong injury, but there's still a question mark about, especially we see how direct the Premier League is.
Would
Is
Guehi have
he
been
your right back?
now, do you think?
I don't think he would have done that. I mean, something that we've also got to factor in here, tactically, is when you get done by PSV and Nottingham Forest, I don't think the manager's got a choice other than to go for a period of time. We are just going to batten down the hatches here.
Yep.
And we have to get through this period, be hard to beat, start regaining some confidence. Because you can't go, we're going to go and play like Brazil 1970 when confidence is on the floor and you can see them 7 at home to them 2 sides. There's a process that you have to go through. The question is, that I find interesting, is when does he stop that? Because I don't believe this is how he wants to play. I don't believe this was the plan. I don't believe the system is here to... Yeah. I don't think the system is here to play. I don't even think he'd necessarily be doing this right now. I think he's just looking at his wide forwards and going, I've got no Gakpo and Salah. And he could play Chiesa and Rio, in theory, and keep the same shape. He doesn't want to. He goes, I'll play Szoboszlai, thanks, and play Wirtz on the left. And I think what's interesting is at what point does he stop doing that? Or does he not? Does he go, right, I am going to change for the rest of the season?
I mean, he was asked as we were recording, there was a press conference a couple of hours ago, the early pre-Wolves one. He's asked about transfers and whether we need them now, given the uncertainty over Salah, given Isak's injury. And he was, as you'd expect, evasive. I'm going to work with what you've got. But putting yourself in his shoes now, I mean, he knows that what they've spent in the summer. Do you think he is, in his own polite way, bashing the door down and going, you've got to get me forward in the summer. You've got to do it. We don't have a choice if you want to be in the Champions League minimum.
I think so, yeah. Like you say, Rob, he's not going to come out in a press conference and say, oh, we definitely need players because, there's games before then. So what does that do to sort of the morale of the team? And also from a point of view of, Richard Hughes negotiating, he's gone, oh, nice one, mate. You know what I mean? Like, what were you playing at here? Making it hard for me. So they're going to sort of play it down. But I'm sure in private they're saying, I think that the phrase I've seen used a couple of times is bringing some targets forward. And I think that's an easy way to sell it to everyone, really, is that, okay, well, these are players that we'd identified anyway. We were looking for maybe in the summer, but we're bringing it forward because needs must. And I think that allows you to tell the story to everyone, including internally, that listen, this isn't panicking. This isn't kind of us saying that nothing that we've done has worked and we'll rip it up and start again. This was the plan anyway. We're just doing it a little bit sooner because of the injury situation. And so I think that's what they'll end up doing, and that's what they'll end up trying to make happen in January. But the problem they've got is that there's other people after these players that we want. There's a lot of other clubs who are hopeful of getting the same players who we are as well. And Liverpool is still a fantastic place to play football, don't get me wrong, but it's not quite the seller that it was in the summer. At the moment, it's listen, it's still a great sell, but there's others who are able to make equally or almost as equally compelling arguments now.
I wonder, we can say, Phil, that the likes of Michael Edwards and Richard Hughes will be able to see what Arne Slot can see. They're footballing men. They can see what we can see. They know some surgery is needed, regardless of what we spent in the summer. But above their level, back at FSG HQ, they're still not football men. I know they'll become more acclimatized. I mean, they're money guys who were sold, I suspect, on a vision of going large in the summer. Notwithstanding, we also sold fairly large as well, but they had to be bold in the outlay initially. Do you not think that they would have said to their paymasters, FSG, at the end of the window, this should do us, bar some tweaks, for a good while yet? And do you not think there's a risk that FSG will getting their door knocked on for 100 million plus potentially this window, and being told that we're also going to need some money for a big name centre back again in the summer, will be going, hang on a sec, boys, what did you tell us again last summer? Is there an element that there might be that? There's that disconnect?
No, I'm just not having that. Just simply because that they were going to do a centre back on the last day of the window and didn't do it. So that means that
there's 35.
That means you're not finished.
No.
That they weren't looking at this going, well, the forward options are perfectly finished. Mohamed Salah's 33. He's not here forever, so that needs replacing. Even though you have got Isak and Ekitike, you can't just do the whole thing based on them two and Cody Gakpo, and then maybe this youngster who we think's all right. You just can't live like that. So I just don't think that.
I think they could have sold that. I think you could have sold.
I just don't think.
I think you could have sold Gakpo, the new three, going, and we're going to, by next summer when Salah probably goes, we'll get a prospect in, and by then Rio's 18. I think they could have sold that.
I'm just not sure it's enough players, and I don't think that they believe it is, or anyone does. It's just when you could possibly do that if there were more midfielders, but then the number of midfielders doesn't really fit with that either. Ultimately, there's 4, 5 if you include Wirtz, depending on which line you put them in effectively.
Yeah,
that's not many. The only way.
No, as we said at the beginning,
there's just no way that that's enough midfielders. We basically on Saturday, as you said, we played all of our midfielders and there was none injured.
Yeah.
All the midfielders that the manager has interest in using anyway.
You said something interesting.
Yeah, Endo's injured.
Endo's injured, but he's borderline irrelevance anyway, if we're being perfectly honest.
You said something interesting before we came on, which it was interesting because I agreed with it. I can't stress this.
They are the most interesting things, famously.
To be interesting. You were speculating whether this squad was being built to be a 3 at the back, 2 centre midfield.
Yeah, I said this on a show a couple of months ago. But when you think about what they were doing with the centre back and getting the extra centre back in, that would have been 5. That would have been 5 centre backs, because ultimately we are obviously short of numbers. But one of the reasons we're short of numbers is that Leone is out for long term with a fairly serious injury.
And you
didn't sign Guehi. You signed the 2 of them. You've suddenly got 5 centre backs. Yeah. You've got full backs who are, I don't want to say better going forward, but they're high up the pitch fullbacks. They're not fullbacks who are sitting in next to a centre half and providing defensive solidity. Are they? You want Kirkes to be up, you want Robertson to be up, you want Bradley to be up, you want Frimpong to be up. That's what you want from those players. Then you look at the number of midfielders. The number of midfielders looks very much like you only want to use 2 of them.
But also, by the way, the lack of wingers also looks like wing back.
100%. It all sort of fits together. That is a thing. When you don't get Guehi, it completely falls to pieces, and you can't actually do it. So I do wonder how much that has played a part into things. But then you see things like very linked with Semenyo, and Semenyo doesn't really fit that. So I'm now just a bit confused, to be perfectly honest. Does the Semenyo thing mean that you can't get Guehi? Because it sort of feels like that if you're going to use Guehi and have back 3 as a plan, Semenyo's not a thing. But if you're using Semenyo, it feels like the back 3's not a thing. Like it sort of pieces together in
Semenyo is a tricky one, because it's not exactly saying he's a unicorn. I'll see you on this one, Sean. We'll get onto the will we get Semenyo or not question, but the usefulness of Semenyo. He does go both ways. Despite Neil's protestations, he has played centre forward for his country about 9 times. If you were playing a 3-5-2, you could see ways you could still use Semenyo, I think.
I mean, I've got to shoe on some tactics in seeing as I'm here. I think
you do, tactics guy.
I think,
as they call it.
look, I think that most top teams defend 4-4-2, or they defend like man-to-man in a high press.
4-5-1 even.
Yeah, most top teams build out. If you look at Arsenal, they literally have 30 to 40 different build-out shapes and patterns of play because of how long they've been there to try and create flexibility and surprise to the opposition. But generally, they are like a 3-2-5 or a 2-3-5 in the way they play. They have 2 wingers high and wide, number 9 striker, and 2 10s. And then they have Declan Rice and Zubimendi dropping in. So put yourself in Liverpool's sporting director shoes. You've got a manager that you pulled contract talks on. His future's up in the air, ultimately. Their job is going to be, how can we put the most balanced squad of quality together that gives whoever the coach is as much flexibility as possible. If he wants to press man, if he wants to defend 4-4-2, if he wants to build out 2-3-5, 3-2-5, whatever you want to call it. I think it would be neglect of them to go, oh, well, this manager might not want to use wide forward, so now we just don't have a squad with any in, with the way things are right now. At the same point in time, you couldn't go the other way. I disagree. I don't think the plan changed in the summer whatsoever. I just don't think it looks like that. I think their plan was, we've got a 4-3-3 manager and we just want 2 players for every position. And I think where there's been a disconnect is maybe the quality of player that they could get in was like, well, Isak and Hugo are just too good to be true, to have them 2 as number 9s, and therefore they're going to roll share. And everyone's been almost addicted to go down the line of, how do we get them both in the team? I don't think there was ever a plan necessarily. Don't get me wrong, in a Champions League final, they might have played Hugo on the left and use Isak up front, but neither of them had played the equivalent of 35 games in a season.
I think it's how you...
When you have 3 games a week, 100 minutes each, the sensible plan is you do a 60-30, then a 30-60, 60-30, and then if one's out, you've got them up and ready to play.
Do you think maybe Ekitike was the Diaz replacement? In the well, I'm just letting you hear me out on this one. In as much as you had, he can play left. He's not a left winger in the orthodox sense, but he can play left. But in the sense that Luis Diaz was a left winger who could play as a forward, who wasn't a forward. So what I'm saying is, they brought Ekitike thinking he can compete with Gakpo on the left, sub for him, and he can play in the middle and compete with the striker. Who we're going to buy, who's going to be called Isak. So they saw Ekitike getting his minutes in all kinds of bits and bobs situation. And they said, well, hang on, Gakpo nailed down the left wing. We're only talking about sort of cover for left wing. I think it's Gakpo, and he has, maybe was the signs were there, it's fallen off a cliff, quite frankly. That's messed this up. The trouble is Gakpo needed other players with him to perform, I think. I think he needed Diaz to be doing the bits he was doing in midfield effectively.
Yeah, John said on a show, which I thought was absolutely spot on, that they did not recruit Florian Wirtz to play the role that he's playing. If they wanted a left winger, they'd have gone and signed a left winger. And all the noise from Germany was that Munich had said, you might play 10, but we've got Musiala. So you might be floating around on the left-hand side. Whereas supposedly in Germany, it was, you're on number 10. We're building this around you.
So when you say...
But then you can have a chat internally, can't you? Go, well, he can fill it on the left. Like Ryan Gravenberch can play centre-back.
What was flawed, though? Okay, let's talk about Wirtz. And again, this sounds like I was right over it all. I was vexed all summer long, excited, but then vexed by the Florian Wirtz question. And it transpires this way, because he ends up in the early part of the season, we play a front 3 and we play Wirtz at the head of a triangle in midfield. And that leads to us quite quickly getting overwhelmed in midfield in a number of games. Quickly out of possession, easy to run through, as we don't have enough defensive footballers, players who can play against the ball well enough in the team. So if that was the plan all along, to have Florian Wirtz effectively a 4th attacker, I'm not having he's a midfielder, or a half attacker, half midfielder. If that was the plan, and I suspect it was, that was a shit plan. Well, it was, I think.
I think they just thought we'd do a lot more attacking. So I think he's thought, I'm going to make our team more attacking. So we've just got people pinned back, and they're just submitting. They're like a UFC fighter on the floor tapping away, and we're just like, no, we won't refuse to break the hold.
To drag us off.
Exactly.
I think that works with a front line of attack. What the pressing monsters.
Yeah,
that works with pressing monsters.
But to be fair, though, and all the hype we got from Wirtz was that he's a brilliant player, but he's a grafter as well. You know?
Very much.
So I think they thought, well, he's a guy who's going to come in and he's going to make us more attacking, but he'll work really hard as well. I think the problem is that we've lost that work rate in the front three. Salah, there's a bit of a myth at the moment that the Salah's never done it. That's not true. But
used to.
Yeah, exactly. But he's had to sacrifice a bit of his game with his age, and the decision's been made. It's going to be that. And
other people carry his water.
Yeah, you understand it. But up top, you know, Isak isn't not what Darwin Núñez was, do you know what I mean? And thank God in some ways, but in terms of off the ball, he's not going to sort of give you the same. Jota was his guy, wasn't he?
Yep.
Both managers. If I'm City away, I'm picking Jota because he's going to make it. He's going to, you know, go from the front and stuff like that. So that. You know, the guys that we brought, and of course, who was a bit less sophisticated in how he's doing it, but had loads of energy and was out there and was a nightmare to play against. And so defensively, you've sort of lost that in front of you, really. With Ekitike, he's scoring all the goals, but he's not quite sort of that kind of forward either. And so, and the Gakpo's just Gakpo. And so, I think there was this idea that Florian, and with the fullbacks as well, that we were just going to really pin teams back and we were going to overload them with attacking options and just make, like as I say, make teams submit. And it's just sort of not quite happened really because we haven't quite clicked from an attacking point of view. And we've had some sort of injuries that have made it a while to sort of get going. And then also other teams have gone, hang on, there's loads of gaps over there. And it took a little while, you know, in those early games. Obviously, Bournemouth sort of found some joy on counter-attackings and things like that, but we still went 2-0 up in the game. You know, Newcastle game was so funny with the red card. It was hard to analyse, really. And then Arsenal just came and submitted themselves. It was a ridiculous performance looking back, that Arsenal one that came to Anfield. They'll be kicking themselves now, watching this Liverpool team and thinking, why did we turn up and just not try and put a glove on them at all? But so it took a little while to sort of realise, really. Then we had those strange sort of, you know, the Burnley one who played the same as Arsenal, but at least they've got an excuse. And then it took a while, but soon teams realised that actually, you know, because Liverpool's press isn't that good, you can play through these options and then suddenly there's kind of all this space, really. So I think I don't think it was the worst plan in the world. I think it's fell down in execution and the managers had to rethink it. But it'd be really interesting to see what he does next. To go back to Sean's point, they've adapted. They've had a plan to go more attacking. It's not worked for a variety of lots of different reasons. Partly the league's just really good as well. I think Arne Slot underestimated the Premier League a little bit. It didn't help that he won it at his first go. He thought, fucking hell, this is easy. Do you know what I mean? You know, he spent most of the season slagging Nottingham Forest off, and you couldn't believe he'd lost to them. He felt like they're quite good, you know. Got some good players, and so I think that was part of the issue. He underestimated it, but there was loads of things have gone wrong. We've been through them with sort of different shows, but I agree with Sean. It's what he does next is really, really interesting. Does he start trying to creep up? Does it get to a point? Say we beat Wolves 5-0, which could happen because they're rubbish. It might not. It might be a tough game, and I think it's more likely to be a tough game. But we might just beat them 5-0. Does he then go, right? Okay, everyone's happy now. Everyone's confident. The next week, people coming back. Gakpo's back. Blah blah blah. We're gonna. That's it. Or does he sort of creep back up? Or does he actually completely reevaluate and go, that thing that we planned to do, we just can't do it. It just isn't going to work. And so let's think of something else. And what that something else is, it's going to be fascinating.
Well, Sky are commenting a lot on Liverpool's imminent transfer business at the moment. And they said, yes, we have understanding. You know, it's true when people say they understand things. We have understanding that plans to sign a centre-back, winger and central midfielder may now be fast-tracked. The club retains strong interest in Marc Guehi and is also amongst those monitoring the situation surrounding Antoine Semenyo. Monitoring my ass. I mean, Jesus Christ. There's 2 weeks.
What's there to monitor? There's literally
2 weeks whether you can buy him or not. I mean, just...
For a set fee.
For a set fee, I know, monitor.
They probably won't haggle.
No.
Which makes you think they're maybe not understanding things very well. But let's just park the Guehi and Semenyo because we'll come on to them. I found the comment about fast-tracking interest in a midfielder to bring this back on itself, Phil, interesting. It seems without doubt to me that one of the signings they were looking for the coming summer would have been a midfielder for a number of possible reasons. One of their the existing centre mids may be looking to move on. There's been speculation about McAllister 6-7 months ago. Players are looking to sign new contracts or not. Would a player like Curtis Jones be happy with his game time. At the moment he would. He might have. So there was always going to be talk around a centre mid. Do you see us fast tracking anything there?
Not necessarily, but it wouldn't surprise me.
And who would be the fast trackee?
God knows. I mean, you've got to look at the homegrown situation at the minute and the state of the squad and think they've got to be English, or at least.
If only there were two really interesting good centre mids.
They just feel like the most logical ones, but maybe they wouldn't want to before the World. The World Cup is an interesting thing in that it would create a problem for them, but it also creates a problem for us in that it's a lot easier to do. It's probably not easier to do business in January, but if you can get it done in January, it feels like it makes it easier to hit the ground running next year. And you don't have to have sort of new players who've been to the World Cup turning up in pre-season on the 5th of August or something because they needed 3 weeks after the World Cup semi-finals or whatever, and it sort of gives you a few months to bed everything in and get everything together and settle.
There's one lesson from this season is get them in early.
100%. You see that just generally speaking, don't you? I mean, there's been a number of summers where it's been like, oh, there isn't really a pre-season. Like, let's be honest, there isn't really a pre-season next season, is there? No. There will be some players who have one, but the huge increase in the number of teams at the World Cup means there's a lot of, we'll have a lot of players there. We will have, we'll have Mamadashvili won't be going. Isak might not be going.
I don't know. There's Sweden people using it.
There's only about six. It feels like there's only about 6 players who you're looking at going, well, they're definitely not going at the minute.
Harvey Elliott.
Well, yeah, but then has he got any interest in him anyway?
Yeah.
So it feels like you could fast track it simply for that reason, and also that Liverpool need to get back in the Champions League, and I think we'll be all right with that. But you still have to do it, and you might look at it and think, well, this is we might pay an extra 10-15 million, but we get that back by confirming qualification for the Champions League. So it would make sense to go out and do stuff in January. I just don't necessarily think it'll happen because it's not quite as simple as what Liverpool want, what Liverpool get with transfers. There's three parties in every transfer, and it might not be that at that specific moment in time it's in the best interest of the other two.
Well, my anxiety on it is that the players you'd have to add to our central midfield pool in an ideal world, if you use the maxim, don't buy unless you can bring someone who's first team ready or as good as what you've got, and as you've thrown in the homegrown wrinkle, which is correctly so in my opinion. It's Wharton and Anderson, and maybe one or two others. I can't think off the top of my head who Liverpool would have. You're not talking much change out of 100 million again. No, that's the price on that's the price on the ticket. I mean, back to FSG headquarters. You're going to go. So you want 100 million, 120 million pound midfielder, do you, Richard Hughes and Arne Slot? You want 65 million on Semenyo? Do you There's a lot of dough at stake still.
Yeah, a midfield is not going to happen. I mean, firstly, they've got 6. The problem is, because of all the issues going on elsewhere, loads of them aren't playing where you think they'd be. Because I think they're going, we've got Gravenberch and Endo, we've got McAllister and Jones, we've got Wirtz and Szoboszlai. And Szoboszlai can play all three. I think that he's filling a slot in the squad, isn't he? No pun intended. But he's not going to be utilised. But I think they're going, we've got 5 plus Endo, plus Neone, and they're probably classifying them maybe as half each, say. And you've then got the homegrown situation. There's no opportunity to bring a non-homegrown in right now. And then on the World Cup, you've got players who think they're guaranteed to start. Why would they risk that? Then you've got players who are in the squad. Why would they risk coming out the squad? And then Nottingham Forest need to stay up. Elliot Anderson's going nowhere. You could probably write them a blank check. Why would they?
Unless there are release clauses or something.
Yeah, unless they're released. And in Adam Wharton's situation, again, he's looking to firm up his starting role in the England side. Why would he go, oh yeah, I don't mind competing with Curtis Jones and McAllister and Dom Szoboszlai and Gravenberch with a manager who, if he doesn't fancy you literally don't get a kick. And that's not me criticising Slot, but that is
the reality of his situation.
That's the reality of what you're looking at. If you sign for Liverpool, you're either going to play loads or you're hardly going to play at all. There is no sort of middle ground, and I think yes, midfield needs a bit of surgery in the summer. I would be surprised if Endo and McAllister don't go, but it's just not. I just don't see a world where it happens this January at all. There's only 3 midfielders that would tick the boxes, and there's Wharton and Elliot Anderson that are unattainable. And then if you've got a non-homegrown space, there could be something to do with Goretzka, but he's on massive money. He's 30. He's available for free in the summer. Is he good enough? It's not the kind of sign that Liverpool would go near. There's loads of other young midfield players with talent, but
because they'd
be projects that you'd be bringing in. So I just don't think there'd be anything they do in midfield in January.
In a way, John, if they think they can only get, well, let's assume they want a centre half. We'll come on to him in a minute, Guéhi in a minute. They've kind of got to make a choice about how they want to play, though, if they this summer, because if we do want to continue playing with 4 midfield players, then we sort of do have to try and find a midfield player, even if he's not necessarily an elite, maybe a projecty one. Maybe we someone who's just clearly better than Endo Naoni. Maybe you splash out on a Baleba thinking he can get his form back and he's still young enough and he's not going to cost you 125 million. Maybe you get him for 70 million. I don't know. Or do you say, hang on, we don't intend playing with 4 midfielders for more than the next week or so, which then puts pressure on the front areas where we will have Salah back, we think, but we won't have Isak, and we were short-handed by 1 before the season started. But if you want to play 3 forwards, you've got to then put all your eggs in the Semenyo basket or somebody else. But I think you almost have to pick which part of the team, formation-wise, the manager wants to move forward with, even if only for the next 4 or 5 months, because we need to be in Europe with Champions League.
Yeah, I completely agree. Again, it goes back again to Sean's point of what is the next plan and who you're buying for. And I think so much of it comes down to Florian Wirtz and what is the plan for him. Because if we do want to eventually move into a number 10 or attacking one of the 3, I think the whole midfield needs looking at. Then I think that's part of the problem that we had. When we were sort of trying that, really it was the realisation that Szoboszlai was doing so much work and was making McAllister and Gravenberch look better and also allowing them to play in the way that they wanted. And you took him out and suddenly, your midfield looks a little bit lightweight is probably how you'd use it. And so I almost think if you need an Elliot Anderson then, for example. You need someone like him to come in who's going to do a lot of the work, who's going to go, right, I'm really going to roll my hands up and make life much better for Florian Wirtz. So it's almost the reverse, really. It used to be your attacking midfielder who was doing a lot of the dirty work for the other 2 and also for the right winger, by the way. And then, but if you're flipping that, then you almost need to flip the others as well. And so where does that leave McAllister, for example? Where does that leave sort of Gravenberch? Because they almost can't both play, I don't think, if you want to do Florian Wirtz as an attacking midfielder. Or if you are going to push him forward, then where does that leave you with the others and the sort of the makeup of that? And you might say, well, actually, we want really good ball players within there now. If Szoboszlai is going to play there, we still feel one short, but it can be more like a Wharton, so someone who's really going to get on the ball for us, someone who's going to allow us to maybe still use Gravenberch, but in other areas of the pitch a little bit more. You've seen his strengths going forward this season. Are we able to use him a little bit more? I think it really, really depends on what the Wirtz plan is, what we do next.
Right, well, I want to come on to talking about Antoine Semenyo in a bit of detail now. But before that, John, you have a public service announcement.
Yes, been doing a few of these this December. We have linked up with Think, and it is about the dangers of drug driving. I'm going to read the message out verbatim, so apologies for that, but I want to get it right. Drugs mess with your reaction time, your focus, and your judgment, all the things you need to drive safely. So even if you might feel fine, your body and brain say otherwise, and drugs can stay in your system for longer than you think, sometimes for days or even weeks after. More and more, especially at this time of year, the police are testing people on the roadside if they suspect them of driving on drugs. We were just talking before the start of the show that we've all seen these testers out and about, and it's a simple swipe, and if you're positive, it could be losing your license for a minimum of a year, an unlimited fine, and ending up with a criminal record. It could cost you a job and give you trouble travelling to other countries like the USA. So if you want to go into the World Cup, you need to think about that, and that's before we even consider the harm you might cause to others. In short, it's not worth the risk. Now listen, no one from the Anfield Wrap is going to tell you what you can and can't do in your private life. That is very clear, but it is good to remind ourselves of the importance of making a plan and looking out for yourself and your mates. So that could be booking a taxi, arranging to stay in someone else's house, or leaving the car at home and then getting the train or the bus in the morning. It only takes one mistake, but you could be regretting it for a lifetime. So think, don't put drugs in the driving seat. Thank you, Rob.
Thanks, John. Okay, we now need to talk about actual footballers that Liverpool have a realistic chance of buying. The Semenyo situation, Phil. There's a different report every couple of hours as to who's likelier. I like Sky Cava's comment yesterday. My take is that if Liverpool come in for Semenyo, he will go there. The next few days, Liverpool will be having discussions at the highest level, specifically in light of the Isak injury, to work out whether they make a move for him or not. Do you really think they're deliberating? Do you think Liverpool are, as we said earlier, they're not monitoring anything? Do you think they've made a decision internally or not? What's your guess?
So I talked about this a couple of weeks ago on the show. It felt like we got a bit quiet on him for a while, and it was, City were at the forefront. There was Spurs chat, there was a bit of United stuff that felt a bit more, and I do wonder if the Isak injury has sort of made them reevaluate and have a think about what we would need in the short term, as well as the medium and long. But it sort of feels like it's changed a bit. Do you think the
situation might have changed it a week or so ago?
Possibly, but also Salah's leaving at some point anyway, in the not too distant future, so I don't necessarily think so. But I do think that the injury on Saturday might have, because it does feel like there's been a little bit of a change of way it's being discussed with regards to Liverpool, in the way it's sort of, when Liverpool sign someone, you can usually sort of pick up on the mood in the media, and it does feel like it's sort of started to move into that category.
Do you know what vexes me a bit though, Phil? It's been reported for a while, I think, several weeks, maybe a month even, that once we got to know about this clause, that you got the sense that the player thinks he's moving in January. Very much a sense that it was almost a given. When you hear that kind of reporting, you tend to sense that they know damn well where they're going as well. Because with this the reports on the clause are that it's a window of 10, 14 days, I think, at the beginning of the window, that a club has got to exploit to be able to get him at the 60 million plus add-ons price. So you think the player would have moved towards a degree of certainty in his own mind, is my guesstimate on this one. And I don't think, given this reported number of suitors and given the quality of the player, that Liverpool's prospects would be good for Semenyo if they were only just now entering the race in a serious way. That's why I'm fairly positive.
Yeah, I mean, there was also a thing we discussed quite heavily in the summer, didn't we, that the stuff you get in the media is a few days behind.
Sure.
This was something we said a number of times. So maybe what we're seeing now is what was actually a week ago. I know that contradicts what I've just said slightly about the Isak injury, but it doesn't necessarily mean that what we're hearing now is what's happening now. And
no, I get it.
It could also just be that it's done and everything else is just noise. Or it might be that we're not signing him. It's just, we'll find out eventually, I guess. That's a bit boring, but...
What do you think? I mean, I think Semenyo knows where he's going to be playing by the end of January.
Do you want a gutter anonymous source?
God,
do you like which camera?
As long as it's news I want to hear.
Gutter anonymous source.
As long as it's stuff I want to
on
hear.
the phone.
Hang on. No. Hang on.
I would love it if you'd just pick the phone up and...
So,
hello.
I was told yesterday.
Stop it, Sean.
Before Ornstein did anything, and it's not David Ornstein, by the way. I wish it was. That would be far more sexy. That Liverpool had a plan for a wide forward and had ruled Semenyo out because it'd be a budget thing for the summer.
Sure.
So Semenyo in November he can go to United, who were the main suitors planned, and if City and Arsenal want to flutter their eyelashes, fine. Now, since then, you've had the Salah situation, and then the Isak move, and that yesterday Semenyo's camp, allegedly without prejudice, I was told yesterday that Liverpool contacted Semenyo's camp yesterday and said things have changed.
What does
Semenyo feel about that? I'd be like, don't come crawling back to me.
It might not be true. It's anonymous, but yeah, it depends how much. Where does he want to go?
Yeah.
Because as you say, like,
this is it.
He was an Arsenal fan, and the thought was always that if Martinelli went, that Arsenal would move for him, and that might be where he wants to be. He might look at Manchester City and go, is that sort of style of football for me? How much game time will I get? He would have to have talks with them about what the role would be for him there. There's talk that Man City want to get either Savinho or Marmoush out. That's the big one. So something I have to be careful here, get my lawyer's head on. So I can't say this is fact, but with extremely high probability, Liverpool spoke with Marmoush a year ago and were really keen on him in loads of different ways. The problem is that Frankfurt went, well, we're going to get a load of money and City want him. And Liverpool went, right, we're out. Because he ticks a load of boxes for us, but the transfer, that's just a ridiculous package. Just forget about it. That's not value. We want value. So he went to City. The question mark is that AFCON doesn't help us and squad numbers right now don't help. And I can't see City selling to Liverpool either at all. And I can't see City wanting to sell cheap But if Semenyo did go to City, the question is probably Spurs. Does a Savinho go? And if a Savinho doesn't go, would there be an opportunity for a later move for Marmoush? Because I think Marmoush, if you just give Marmoush to Liverpool, I actually think he ticks a load of boxes because of his versatility in that he could play as a 10. He's played with Hugo Ekitike, he's played wide. I don't, to be clear, in case it gets clipped, I don't think that would happen. But there might be some dominoes involved in Manchester City either way, I think.
How hot do you think City would be on Semenyo, John?
It's hard
window.
It's hard to say, really. I can't figure City out. It used to feel like there was, he's a definite sort of Man City player, but they've...
Who are they playing on either flank? Doku's nailed the left, right?
Doku...
Odin on the other one?
Yeah.
Ray and Cherky's doing sometimes they play Foden inside, Cherky is nominally outside. Yeah. Remember, City are using their full-backs now as their, a bit like Trent and Robertson, with Pep Linders there. It's more the attacking width comes from them and the wings can come inside.
But I never would have thought Cherky was a City player, but they went and got him, and he looks quite fun. So fair play. But I never would have thought he'd be a Pep type of player. And the keeper, he's the complete opposite of what they've been doing for the last 10 years. And so they're hard to figure out, really. But if you want some more pace in wide areas, if you've seen what Doku's doing and thinks that's the way forward, then yeah, maybe.
Okay, I suppose we just got to watch this space for a little bit longer. I mean, it's what date are we today? 23rd. You would think, given the shortness of the window in which people can buy Semenyo, that within 5 days, the speculation will be moving beyond speculation to sources understand that the player is very keen to commit to. Because you don't tend to find these January 1 transfers, and this feels like it's a January 1 transfer. You don't find on the morning of January the 1st, you tend to find a few days before, which is what happened with Virgil van Dijk, I think, thinking about the last time.
Post the Christmas tree.
Yes, exactly. So let's, for the zillionth time, talk about Marc Guehi, Phil. I mean, we desperately need a centre-back. We're living on a knife edge. If it's not Marc Guehi, and there were reports yesterday, I think Paul Joyce says Guehi's contract expires at the end of the season, is unlikely to move next month. Liverpool would hope to sign him on a free in the summer. Doesn't help us just right now. Liverpool need a bloody centre-half. That we can't dispute.
Yeah, no, we can't, because there's two and a bit. Two and a bit.
Yeah.
And the bit he's shown no real inclination to use as a centre back. I think there's mitigating factors on injuries and stuff, and him not sort of trusting him fitness wise, as has been. I think he was vindicated as well, wasn't he, when he was like, well, I can't just play him, and then look, he gets injured.
Is this a negotiating dance, do you think, beginning to play here with over the fee that Palace would like to get by?
Quite possibly, but I think also you've got to do it early as well. I mean, you can't. If you're going to get him, it needs doing it. Waiting until the end of January could could lead to you playing 2 more Champions League games. It could lead to you playing.
Well, can I put something to you? What's he called? Parish. Parish is the interesting fly in ointments here, because he's the guy who's trying to.
He wants the money.
He wants the dough to make the PSR compliant. If you get to January the 30th, Parish is then able to say to Glasner and his team, for the sake of February, March, April, and a couple of weeks in May, you're going to deny me 20 million towards PSR. Are you really? I've given you scouts all the time in the world here. That's why I think it could go late.
Yeah, I think there's almost a bit.
They get in for another month.
It felt like a bit of a power struggle, but in the summer between Glasner and Parish, and I sort of feel that you can never let a manager have that much power, because managers are basically passing through, aren't they? Particularly Glasner. I'd be surprised if Glasner's there in 12 months. The way he's talked and sort of acted, and also he's come from decent level. He's managed Frankfurt and won the Europa League. He's not some fella who's at his ceiling at Crystal Palace. And that's what that's why he's able to sort of have that conversation, because he knows he's got a bit of power and a bit about him, and the ability to make Palace feel that they're grateful to have him, if that makes sense. But I just don't think Parish can let him, and he sort of has to potentially, if Parish thinks I need the money, he's almost got to call his bluff to a point to go, look, if you're going to resign, fine. You might be gone in 3 months' time anyway, so if I have to do what I have to do. So it does feel a bit of an odd one. But I think Parish would probably rather have the money, because I think he knows that he's running a sustainable long-term football club in a way that Glasner isn't really, and the way that managers aren't and don't have to think about it in the same way.
They've had a tough week as well, Palace. A lot of games. They've managed to somehow get in another round of this competition.
I can't believe that the amount of how no one has pointed out that they have managed to not finish in the top. Like, it's not like a big thing in the media or anything.
Yeah, I don't think anyone.
They came ninth in the Conference League, Rob.
Oh, really?
They failed to beat. They lost at home to Larnaca and failed to beat Cups.
So they're not likely to win this thing, are they?
Well, I mean, they might do,
but it's extra games. It's a pain. They've got a
they
League
made a
Cup
lot of
game tonight.
they made a lot of changes against Cups, didn't they? Because they were playing Leeds on Saturday, which obviously went well.
And they got hammered by Leeds. They do if they go out the League Cup tonight, which I think they will. I think there might be a little bit of a trying to reassess, what is the option? Because at one point they were flying in competitions. They looked like they might qualify for the Champions League in the league, and then at that point you all get giddy a little bit, don't you? And I wonder whether, as I say, if they go out tonight, there might be a little bit of let's actually sort of take stock of where we are actually at, and what's the sort of the best thing. And so I actually think the last week might help Liverpool a little bit.
There's 4 options, aren't there? I think. See if you agree. So Liverpool do nothing, which none of us would like, but
good option.
I think we could all probably see. I think we can all see a world where that might happen.
Yeah, but they're less likely to get Guéhi in the summer then.
Well,
even more
Guéhi problem is so multi-layered. Like, what's Thomas Tuchel saying to him about it? Secondly, if you're Marc Guehi, you might have been willing to waive money last summer, but if I'm his agent, I'm going, if you want him now, you're going to pay exactly the same wage and budget, and I'm not losing money as the agent, by the way.
Story last week that was a...
Yeah, so you've got to give me the same dough that I'm going to get off Liverpool in June. Yeah. So then Liverpool are going to go, but part of the reason we're doing that deal is because we're not giving Crystal Palace a fee. And the reason the deal didn't happen last summer, yes, there's Parish and Glasner, but it isn't actually that. It's the sporting director at Palace, Dougie Freedman, had gone, and they didn't have a replacement. And Glasner was, I think, quite vindicated in going, if you'd have got me someone decent, so... not a problem. Yeah. I get that.
Well, they've now had 4 more months.
Exactly. So the question is, are Crystal Palace being linked with good to top centre-backs? Yeah. Because if you're Crystal Palace, if it was me, I'd be all over Sensei at Bournemouth. Left-sided, ball-playing centre-back, out of contract in the summer. So won't be on mega money at Bournemouth. So you could get Guéhi out the door to Liverpool and say to Bournemouth, you're not going to be competing for Champions League or big European places. You're not going down, probably.
But what are the Bournemouth going to sell at? No one's worth less than.
Well, that's what Crystal Palace will set the fee as to Liverpool, won't they? And go, we can either try and do a freebie swap. The problem for Crystal Palace is Sensei might have better offers, I suspect, come the summer. I could actually make an argument if Liverpool had one non-homegrown space. I could make an argument that Liverpool could go to Sensei and go, maybe you're our 4th or 5th choice centre-back, depending on Leone, because he's oven ready, plays a high line, can play out from the back, centre-back top half team. Is he ideal? No. Would I do a cartwheel about getting him? No. But if you can't get Marc Guehi and you come down on we need a centre-back, the only other one that you'd have to massively overpay on is Schotterback at Dortmund. All the other top centre-backs, like Bastoni, I like Lekeba, who would be a bit of a project. You're not getting them in January in a month of Sundays.
No, there's no chance. Okay, let's finish on Harvey Elliott. Because this morning, I don't know if anyone saw Arne Slot talking about him in the press conference. He was very evasive about Harvey Elliott. Maybe that's unsurprising, but he just went, Aston Villa player. They're doing really well. He's a really good player. He wanted to move there. It's great. He's more than... It's not a subject for this conversation. He really pushed it back down the road.
It's not really his thing, is it? It's more that you can't go, we'll have him back.
No, you
sort
can't.
Of feels more like, do you want him back?
Do you think there's a deal with Villa that they have to do to allow Villa to reverse out of it? Like they said to Villa, okay, we'll let you off the hook, but you've got to pay his wage.
You'd imagine that there's some kind of exit fee from their point of view, wouldn't you?
I
feel like that.
Wages
I just feel like when you commit to buying him, not buying him because you're not playing him should have some kind of tax on. I don't know how it works exactly, but it feels like it should.
Well, you're paying his wage. If Liverpool say we're definitely not having him in that world, Villa are going to be paying, what's he going to be on at Villa? 100 grand a week, something like that? Villa are going to be paying him quite a lot of money to do nothing with it, and they can't risk paying. So there might be something.
But also, it might be that they pay, if they pay the wages, they don't have to pay the 35 million quid, so that is a way out of it, really, isn't it?
Well, they wouldn't have to pay it anyway.
No, exactly. No, exactly. That's what I mean.
The whole thing's probably a little bit more complicated than maybe like I was getting out on the last show. I was like, it's a no-brainer getting back in, but they need to think about, like you say, who makes the move on this. There's maybe a little bit of a game of chicken going at the moment because at the moment Aston Villa, I assume are paying all his wages. I don't think he'd be quite on 100 grand a week, but I think he'd be on a decent whack. And they'll be paying all of it, whatever it is. They'll have also paid a loan fee. And so I think that comes into it as well. So whatever they say the loan fee was 5 million quid, then if Liverpool are the ones who go, we want him back, then suddenly Villa are like, well, okay, so it's not quite this free transfer that I was making and others have made out. Really, it's okay. You I think if Liverpool make the move, I think Aston Villa are in the rights to say, well, okay, well, give us that loan fee back that we paid. And so you're like, well, are you willing to pay, if say it was 5 million quid plus Harvey Elliott's wages for Harvey Elliott for the rest of the season. That's the decision that we have to weigh out. It is a chunk of change. Or do you just sort of hold fire a little bit, allow Villa to maybe come to you and then go, oh, go on then. We'll shake hands on the loan fee. Forget about that.
But you pay the wages.
We'll take his wages.
I think it's a great analysis by John. I think that's probably exactly what's happening, because two things can be true at once. It is a no-brainer that Liverpool take Harvey Elliott back, given the decimation of the squad at the moment and the issues we've talked about. But they've got to play cool. Otherwise, they could be £5 million poorer.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to have to be player force. It's quite funny that the players kind of want to leave one manager who won't use me for another one who won't use me. But if you look at Liverpool's bench for Spurs...
At least he's got more mates here.
Well, this is it. He's higher up the vibes league, isn't he? On individual player.
Close to his house as well.
Yeah.
He
literally supports Liverpool.
And he'd have been on the bench for Spurs, and he'd be coming off the bench with what's going on at the moment, wouldn't he? So there's no doubt if you were him, you'd be better off at Liverpool rather than them.
He's got 25 minutes on Saturday.
The other... Yeah, totally. And the other fly in the ointment, if you cast your mind back, do you remember the late transfer rumours that part of the delay in the Elliott deal was because Liverpool were negotiating a discount on Morgan Rogers? And if that's true, is that linked to the loan or was that linked to the transfer? Because if it's linked to the transfer, Liverpool would be very keen, I imagine, for that transfer to still go ahead, which isn't going to happen now, unfortunately, is it? Whereas if it's linked to the loan, that if it is, that would add another layer of complexity for Liverpool, because if the loan is then cancelled, where does that leave any discount on Rodgers? Because Liverpool did a few favours for Villa on the Elliott deal. I don't think Michael Edwards is in that big a rush to do favours for anyone. It's kind of like Tony Soprano. Do you ever want to do a favour for Tony Soprano? Because there's probably going to be something horrific coming back the other way. So I think, like in business, if you do a favour for Michael Edwards, I've got a feeling that Michael Edwards isn't leaving the room before he goes. And by the way, before we do that, I need a £15 million discount on Morgan Rogers or whatever it might be. So that's wild speculation, but we're on the gutter. So
we are. I mean, I'd love to speculate about more.
I think it's funny. I suspect the individuals all want it to happen. But I imagine the lawyers are probably having a nightmare with head of accounts.
In terms of Harvey Elliott on the slot and Emery. I agree. I think on that bombshell, we'll wrap this Christmassy gutter. It definitely is the last one before Christmas because I think by the time we next do a gutter, we'll be on the edge of the window actually opening, which will be very exciting.
On the edge of glory.
See if Liverpool sign one of the only two targets that they've been linked with for absolutely months on end. Thank you, Sean. Thank you, Phil. Thank you, Johnny. See you soon.